I'd been coming to Pelican Beach in Clearwater for 15 years, and I'd never seen the ocean angry like that morning. The waves crashed against the shore with a force that made the sand shake beneath my feet, and the red warning flags snapped so hard in the wind they sounded like whips cracking. The sunrise painted everything in violent shades of orange and red, as if the sky itself was trying to warn us about what was coming. Even the air tasted different, thick with salt, and a damp, electric charge that hinted at a storm somewhere out on the Gulf. Still, I couldn't resist my morning run, just staying farther from the water than usual. That decision probably saved more lives than just my own. It was barely past 7, that magical hour when the beach belongs to joggers, dog walkers, and the occasional treasure hunter with a metal detector. The sand was still cool from the night, and my footprints were some of the first to mark the pristine surface. I'd been running this same stretch since moving to Clearwater 3 years ago after David's heart attack. These morning runs had become my meditation, my therapy, my way of processing grief, one stride at a time. The sun had just cleared the horizon, painting everything in shades of gold and pink that no camera could ever truly capture. Pelicans dove for breakfast in the shallows, and sandpipers scattered before me like tiny comedians on stiletto legs. Despite the rough water, it was beautiful. The kind of morning that reminded me why I'd chosen to rebuild my life here, instead of staying in Pittsburgh, where every corner held a memory. I was halfway through my usual 5-mile route, just passing the old pier where fishermen were already setting up despite the conditions, when I heard it. A sound that made my blood turn to ice water in my veins. "Help! Someone help us!" The scream cut through the crash of waves and the crying of seagulls. I skidded to a stop, sand flying everywhere, my heart rate spiking beyond anything my run had caused. I scanned the water frantically, shielding my eyes from the morning glare. There, about 50 yards out, I saw them. A man was trying desperately to hold on to 2 children while fighting against a current that was dragging them farther from shore with every second. The kids couldn't have been more than 8 and 10, their small heads barely visible above the churning water. Their brightly colored swimsuits, one pink, one blue, looked so cheerful against the dark, violent water, making the scene even more horrifying. I'm a decent swimmer. Competed in high school, made it to state championships twice, still do laps at the Y 3 times a week. But looking at those waves, at the way the water was moving in that telltale sideways pull of a riptide, I knew with absolute certainty that if I went in alone, we'd all drown. The ocean didn't care about my medals or my morning workouts. It was stronger than any of us. "Call 911!" I shouted to a woman walking her golden retriever nearby. She fumbled for her phone immediately, her dog barking frantically at the water, sensing the danger. The woman's hands were shaking so badly she dropped the phone in the sand, had to brush it off and try again. I kicked off my running shoes and waded in up to my knees, but the undertow nearly knocked me over just in the shallows. The water was shockingly cold despite the warm morning, and the current pulled at my legs like invisible hands. This was bad, really bad. I could hear the father's voice carrying over the waves, weaker now, exhausted. "Hold on, babies, Daddy's got you!" That's when I heard footsteps pounding behind me. A younger guy, maybe 25, came sprinting down the beach. He had the build of someone who lived in the gym and the determined look of someone who wasn't going to stand by and watch. His morning workout clothes were already soaked with sweat, and he was breathing hard from his run. "We need to form a chain," he said breathlessly, already stripping off his shirt. "Human chain. I saw it on a documentary once about a rescue in Panama City. It's the only way in a riptide this strong. We can't fight it individually." "I'm Meredith," I said, because somehow in crisis names matter. They make us human to each other. "Meredith Harper." "Tyler Washington," he replied, already scanning the beach for more help. "We need more people, a lot more, at least 20 to reach them safely." As if the universe heard us, people began appearing. An older couple carrying coffee cups dropped everything and ran over, their matching resort wear getting soaked as they waded in without hesitation. The woman's sun hat blew off in the wind, cartwheeling down the beach, but she didn't even notice. "We're here to help," the man called out. "Tell us what to do." A group of teenage girls who'd been taking sunrise selfies abandoned their phones on their beach towels, running over in their bikinis and cut-off shorts. Their carefree vacation morning had just turned into something else entirely. A maintenance worker driving one of those little beach vehicles jumped out so fast he left the engine running, the keys still dangling in the ignition. "Form a line!" Tyler shouted, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being heard. Turned out later he was a football coach at the local high school, used to directing teenagers in high-pressure situations. "Hold hands and wrists, not just fingers, like you're doing a wrist carry. We go in together, nobody lets go. If you can't swim, stay on the beach and anchor us." The woman with the golden retriever had reached a beach patrol station about a quarter-mile down, and I could hear sirens in the distance, but we all knew they wouldn't make it in time. The family was already another 20 yards farther out, and the father's movements were getting weaker. The children had stopped struggling, which terrified me more than their earlier panic. In water safety, when kids go quiet, you're running out of time. An elderly man in a veteran's cap stepped forward, his weathered face set with determination. Despite his age, he moved with purpose. "I'll anchor from the beach," he said firmly. "Bad hip from shrapnel in Nam, but I've got strong arms. Did rescue work in the Coast Guard for 20 years. Name's Bill Doherty." "I'm going in the water," said one of the teenage girls, her braces glinting as she spoke. She had the lean build of a swimmer, and her confidence showed she knew her capabilities. "I'm on the swim team at Clearwater High. I'm Rachel. I train in rough water." "Me too," her friend added, already pulling her long hair into a tight bun. "Chloe, we're used to this. We practice rescues." More people kept coming, drawn by the commotion and the universal human instinct to help. A jogger named Eddie Ramirez skidded to a stop, his eyes already scanning the victims with a practiced, professional gaze. "They're tiring fast. That little one's head keeps going under," he said, his voice clipped and focused. "I'm a paramedic. Off duty, but I can help when we get them back." A tourist couple from Ohio, Beth and Frank Morrison, still in their matching 15th anniversary t-shirts, didn't hesitate. "We're from Lake Erie," Frank said. "We know water. We're in." A woman appeared with a voice that immediately commanded attention, despite its softness. "I'm Desiree Williams," she said. "I teach kindergarten, but I also coach youth swimming. Let me help organize this. Children first when we reach them. They'll tire fastest." Two brothers came running from the boardwalk, still in their food service aprons. "I'm Anthony, this is Jerome," the older one said. "We own the Soul Food Express truck. Saw the commotion from up there. What do you need?" "Strength and courage," Tyler replied. "Get in line." Within minutes, we had 20 people, then 30. They kept coming, drawn by that human instinct to help when help is desperately needed. A nurse named Patricia Gonzalez, who'd been enjoying her day off. A group of college students on spring break who dropped their volleyball game. A father and son who'd been fishing off the pier. Even a woman in her 70s, who insisted she could at least help anchor from the beach. "Nobody's a hero here," Tyler called out as we organized ourselves, his coach voice cutting through the chaos. "We all come back or nobody does. If you feel the current pulling too hard, yell and we pull back. Keep your feet planted, lean into each other. The chain is only as strong as our weakest link, so speak up if you're in trouble. Everyone understand?" A chorus of agreement rose up. Bill, our anchor, planted himself firmly in the sand, his old Coast Guard training evident in how he positioned his body. He grasped the hands of the two strongest-looking men, creating a solid base. The chain began forming, each person locking hands and wrists with the next. I ended up between Tyler and Rachel, the teenage swimmer. "On 3, Tyler commanded. 1, 2, 3. We moved as one organism into the water. The first wave hit us at knee height, and I felt the chain sway but hold. The cold was shocking, even though I'd tested it moments before. Step by step, we moved deeper. The sand shifted beneath our feet, sometimes firm, sometimes giving way to hidden dips that made us stumble. But each time someone faltered, the people on either side held them up. "Hold!" Tyler yelled. "Lean into each other. Trust the chain." By the time the water reached my chest, I could feel the real power of the riptide. It was like standing sideways on a treadmill that kept getting faster, while someone randomly threw medicine balls at you. My feet struggled to find purchase on the shifting sand. Shells and debris churned up by the storm swept past us. To my right, Rachel's face was set in fierce determination, her swimmer's training showing in how she positioned her body against the current. To my left, Tyler's grip was strong enough to hurt, but I was grateful for it. I could feel his pulse through his wrist, rapid but steady. "I see them," someone farther down the line called out. "Maybe 15 yards. We were getting closer, but so slowly. Every step forward felt like a marathon. The chain stretched and compressed like an accordion as waves crashed over us. Salt water filled my mouth and nose. My eyes burned, but we kept moving. The father had seen us now. His face. God, I'll never forget that face. Terror giving way to desperate hope. He was trying to swim toward us while holding both children, one under each arm. The little girl in the pink suit was completely limp. The boy was barely moving. "Almost there," Tyler encouraged. "Few more yards. Stay strong." That's when I felt it. The moment when the current really grabbed us. It was like an invisible hand had wrapped around my legs and pulled hard. The seafloor seemed to drop away beneath us, and suddenly we were in deeper water than we'd expected. I heard Chloe cry out, saw the chain start to bow outward. For a terrifying second, I thought we were all going to be swept away. This is how people die, I thought, trying to save others. "Pull back," someone shouted. "Angle sideways, don't fight it straight on." Later, I learned this came from Jerome, who'd grown up surfing these waters and knew how to read currents like some people read books. Instead of fighting the riptide head-on, we began moving at an angle, using the current's power instead of fighting it directly. It was still brutal, but it worked. Physics over panic. "That's it!" Bill's voice carried from the shore, strong despite the distance. "Sidestep, let the current help you." More people had joined the shore end of our chain. I caught glimpses when the waves allowed what looked like 50 or 60 people now, maybe more. Someone was live streaming on their phone. Others were in the water up to their waists, ready to help pull us back. The beach had transformed from a quiet morning scene into something extraordinary. The father was close now, maybe 6 feet away, but those 6 feet might as well have been 6 miles. He was at the end of his strength, his face gray with exhaustion. The children. "Take them!" he gasped, pushing the kids toward us with the last of his energy. "Please, take my babies!" Tyler and I were among the first to reach them. Tyler grabbed the boy while I took the girl, and the people behind us immediately wrapped their arms around all of us, creating a protective cocoon against the current. The girl was so light, too light, her small body limp in my arms. I could feel Rachel beside me, helping support the child's head above water. The father collapsed against us, completely spent. Jerome and Anthony grabbed him, one under each arm. "Got them!" Tyler shouted. "Pull us back! Everyone pull!" And they did. All those strangers, locked hand in hand, began the slow process of dragging us back to shore. It felt like trying to walk upstream in a river made of molasses. The current fought us for every inch, not wanting to give up its prizes. But with every step, I could feel more hands joining, more strength adding to ours. The chain held. Whenever someone stumbled, the people on either side held them up. When a wave crashed over us, we bent but didn't break. I kept my eyes on the little girl's face, watching for any sign of consciousness. Nothing. Her lips were blue, her skin cold despite the warm morning. The teenage swimmers, Rachel and Chloe, began singing, "Of all things, lean on me." Their young voices carried over the crash of waves, high and clear and somehow absolutely perfect for the moment. "Lean on me," they sang, "when you're not strong." Soon others joined in. There we were, 40-something strangers from all walks of life, singing Bill Withers while fighting the ocean for 3 precious lives. The businessman from Oregon knew every word. The college students hummed along. Even gruff Bill on the shore was mouthing the lyrics. If it hadn't been so desperate, it might have been funny. Instead, it was beautiful. It was humanity at its finest, choosing hope in the face of disaster. When my feet finally touched sand where the water was only waist deep, my legs nearly gave out. The adrenaline that had been keeping me going started to fade, and I became aware of how much every muscle burned. But we couldn't rest yet. The children were unconscious, and the father was barely responsive. As we dragged them onto the beach, the crowd that had gathered parted to let us through. Someone had thought to lay out beach towels on the sand. Others had brought umbrellas to create shade. The preparation and organization were remarkable for something so spontaneous. "I'm a nurse!" Patricia Gonzalez came running with a medical kit from her car. "Get them on their backs. Check their airways." She took charge immediately, her professional calm a stark contrast to the chaos moments before. While she worked on the little girl, Tyler began CPR on the boy without hesitation. He'd been a lifeguard in college, he told us later, working summers at the Jersey Shore. 1 and 2 and 3, Tyler counted steadily, sweat dripping from his face onto the sand. His huge hands looked so gentle on the small chest. The father was conscious, but in shock, his eyes unfocused. Several people wrapped him in beach towels while Eddie, the off-duty paramedic, checked his vitals. Someone else was on the phone with 911 giving updates. "Come on, sweetheart," Patricia murmured as she worked on the girl. "Come back to us. Your daddy needs you to come back." The father heard this and tried to crawl toward his children, but gentle hands held him back. "Let them work," someone said softly. "They know what they're doing." The seconds stretched like hours. The crowd had gone silent except for the sound of waves and Patricia's counting as she performed compressions. Even the seagulls seemed to have stopped their crying. The morning sun climbed higher, its warmth a strange contrast to the cold fear in my chest. I found myself praying for the first time since David's funeral. Then, a cough. Water spurted from the girl's mouth and she began crying. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. The crowd erupted in cheers and sobs. Tyler's boy followed seconds later, retching up seawater and immediately calling for his daddy. The father crawled over to them, gathering both children in his arms, sobbing so hard his whole body shook. He held them like he'd never let go again. "My babies," he kept saying, my babies, Aisha, Malcolm, my babies." "Daddy?" the little girl, Aisha, whispered. "I was scared." "I know, baby, I know. Daddy's here. You're safe now." The paramedics arrived then, along with beach patrol and what seemed like every emergency vehicle in the county. Red and blue lights painted the beach in flashing colors. As they loaded the family into ambulances, the father grabbed as many hands as he could reach. "Thank you," he whispered hoarsely, his voice raw from screaming and salt water. "Thank you all. I'm Robert Turner. These are my children, Aisha and Malcolm. You saved my children. You saved all of us." "You held on," Tyler told him. "You kept them above water long enough for us to reach you. You saved them first." But here's the part that really stayed with me. What happened after the ambulances left? Nobody wanted to leave. We all stood there on the beach, soaking wet and exhausted, but somehow unable to just walk away from each other. We'd shared something profound, something that connected us in a way that's hard to explain. It was like we'd been strangers on a subway, and suddenly the lights went out and we'd had to hold hands in the dark. Except instead of a tunnel, it had been the ocean. And instead of darkness, It had been death we'd faced together. Bill, our anchorman, was the first to speak. He cleared his throat, his voice gruff with emotion. "Well, I don't know about y'all, but I could use some coffee, and maybe something stronger." "Boardwalk Cafe's on me," Anthony announced immediately. He and Jerome had run the Soul Food Express truck for 5 years, and they weren't taking no for an answer. "Everyone, breakfast for everyone, and I mean everyone, even you folks who stayed on shore. You were part of this too." So that's how 40-something strangers ended up crowding into a beach cafe at 8 in the morning. The air, thick with the smell of brewing coffee and sizzling bacon, was a warm blanket against the lingering chill of the ocean on our skin. We were still dripping salt water, sandy and exhausted, ordering pancakes and telling our stories in hushed, trembling voices. The cafe owner, a woman named Maggie, wouldn't take Anthony's money. "Heroes eat free," she said firmly, and that started everyone crying all over again. Tyler, the young coach who'd organized us, sat quietly in the corner, his hands shaking slightly as the adrenaline wore off. I brought him coffee, noticed how young he looked now that the crisis was over. Maybe 22, 23. "You okay?" I asked. He looked up, eyes bright with unshed tears. "My little brother drowned when I was 15, he said quietly. "I was supposed to be watching him. I've been terrified of the ocean ever since. Moved to Florida to face that fear, became a coach to help kids, but I've never actually gone in past my knees until today." The confession hung between us, profound and fragile. "You went in today," I said simply, "when it mattered most." "We all did," he replied. "That's what's amazing." Rachel and Chloe, the teenage swimmers, were already planning with Desiree. "We could start a water safety program at school," Rachel said, her braces catching the light as she smiled. "Teach people about riptides, about human chains, about not panicking." "I'll help," Desiree offered. "I've got connections with the school board. We could make it part of PE curriculum." Patricia, the nurse, was fielding questions about CPR training, promising to organize free classes. "Every person on this beach should know CPR," she said firmly. "Every single one. If those children had been underwater another minute—" "But they weren't," Eddie the paramedic interjected gently. "We got them in time, that's what matters." "I've lived here 22 years, Eddie continued, looking around the crowded cafe. "Pass most of you on the beach every morning. Never said more than morning or nice dog. That changes today." Beth and Frank Morrison, the tourist couple, were supposed to fly home to Ohio that afternoon. "We're extending our trip," Beth announced suddenly. "Frank, call the airline." "Already thinking the same thing," Frank agreed. "This place, these people, how do you leave after something like this?" The maintenance worker, whose name was Hector Flores, hadn't even clocked in for his shift yet. His supervisor had called 3 times. "Boss can fire me if he wants," he said, grinning as he declined another call. "Some things are more important than raking sand. My crew will understand when they hear." Desiree, the kindergarten teacher, was already organizing. She had that teacher energy, the kind that turns chaos into order without anyone quite realizing it's happening. "We should stay in touch," she said, passing around a notebook. "Exchange numbers, emails, what we did today. It matters. It shouldn't end when we walk out of here." "A group chat," one of the college students suggested. "I can set it up. We can check on each other, share updates about the family." As I added my information to the growing list, I thought about how I'd started this morning. Just another solo run on the beach, keeping to myself, maintaining the comfortable distance I'd cultivated since David died. I'd moved to Clearwater to disappear, to grieve in private, to avoid the sympathetic looks and well-meaning invitations from friends who didn't know what to say to a 45-year-old widow. "You okay?" Tyler came to sit beside me. Up close, I could see the salt dried on his dark skin, the way his hands still trembled slightly. "Yeah," I said, surprised to find it was true. "Just thinking about how we never know what a day might bring." "My grandma says every sunrise is God's way of saying, 'Try again,'" he replied. "Guess today we all tried something new." "Your grandma sounds wise. She raised me and my brother after our parents died," he said simply. "She's the strongest person I know. Gonna call her after this, tell her about today. She'll probably want to feed all of you." Jerome overheard and laughed. "Southern grandmas and their need to feed people. Mine's the same way. Food is love," she says. "Food is community," Anthony added. "That's why we started the truck, bringing people together one meal at a time." By the time we finished breakfast, Robert Turner's sister had called the cafe. She'd gotten the number from the paramedics, wanted to thank everyone. The whole family was stable, recovering at Clearwater General. The kids were asking about the chain people, wanting to know their names, wanting to thank everyone personally. Plans were already forming for a reunion when they were released. Anthony and Jerome offered to cater it for free. The college students suggested the beach pavilion at sunset. "Full circle," one of them said. "Show the ocean we're not afraid." Over the next weeks, the story spread faster than any of us expected. News channels picked it up, dubbing us the Clearwater chain. The video that Bystander had live-streamed went viral. Millions of views in 3 days. Donation offers poured in, but we directed everything to water safety programs and the local lifeguard association. None of us wanted money. We'd already received something more valuable. But the real story, the one the cameras missed, was what happened to all of us after that day. The WhatsApp group Desiree created became a daily check-in for many of us. Chain Gang, we called ourselves, and the name stuck. Tyler started coaching swimming at the community center, specifically teaching riptide survival. He faced his fear every single day, turning trauma into purpose. I joined as a volunteer instructor, finally using those high school swim team skills for something meaningful. "Water used to be my enemy," Tyler told his first class. "Now it's my teacher. Respect it, understand it, but don't fear it, and never ever face it alone." Rachel and Chloe's water safety program at Clearwater High became a model for schools across Florida. They brought in Jerome to teach currents, Patricia for CPR, and Bill for Coast Guard rescue stories. The girls, only 17, spoke at the state education conference about their program. Anthony and Jerome started hosting monthly beach cookouts, bringing their food truck right onto the sand. Chain gang gatherings, they called them, but they were open to everyone. The beach that had nearly claimed 3 lives became a place of celebration and community. Their soul food brought people together in a different kind of chain, one linked by barbecue sauce and friendship. Beth and Frank Morrison? They never did fly home to Ohio. They bought a small condo 2 blocks from the beach and became full-time Clearwater residents. Beth got a job at the local library. Frank found work as a contractor. "Some places call to you," Beth explained at their housewarming, the entire chain gang crammed into their tiny living room. "And some people become your people in the space of a single moment." Hector didn't get fired. In fact, his boss was so moved by the story that he instituted a new policy. Any city employee who stopped to help in an emergency would be paid for their time, no questions asked. It became known as the chain rule, and other municipalities began adopting similar policies. Bill Dougherty, our anchor, became something of a local celebrity. At 78, he said that morning on the beach had given him a new lease on life. He started a veterans swimming group, teaching water safety to former service members dealing with PTSD. He called it Operation Anchor Point, a place where they could learn to be the calm in their own storm. "Water heals," he'd say, "when you respect it and when you're not alone in it. The ocean doesn't care about your medals or your nightmares. It just is. Learning to work with it instead of against it, that's a metaphor for a lot of things." His group grew from 5 members to 50. They called themselves anchors, and they practiced rescue techniques monthly, always ready to be the strong foundation for any future chains. But the biggest change happened 6 months later. Robert Turner had recovered fully, and his kids were thriving. They'd moved back to Atlanta after the incident. Robert's job had transferred him there years ago, and they'd only been visiting Clearwater for vacation, but they returned for our first official chain gang reunion. The beach pavilion was decorated with paper chains the local elementary school kids had made. Each link had a name from that day, colorful reminders of how we'd all connected. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, and the ocean was calm, almost apologetic for its earlier violence. Robert stood before our group, his children beside him, and struggled to find words. Aisha wore a new pink swimsuit, the same bright color as the one from that terrible day, but this time paired with a confident smile. Malcolm had grown at least 2 inches and wore a junior lifeguard t-shirt with obvious pride. "You gave me my life back," Robert finally said, his voice steady but emotional. "Not just by saving us, but by showing us what humanity looks like." Aisha and Malcolm know that when things get dark, people will link hands and wade into danger for strangers. That's a gift bigger than just survival. Aisha, all of 9 years old, stepped forward shyly. "I want to be a lifeguard when I grow up," she announced. "Like all of you. I'm already taking swimming lessons, real ones, not just playing." Malcolm, 11 and trying to be tough, added, "Me too, but I also want to teach people about riptides, so this doesn't happen to other families. Dad says I can start junior lifeguard training next summer." "We've started a foundation," Robert announced. "The Clearwater Chain Foundation. For water safety education, swimming lessons for underprivileged kids, and emergency response training. You showed us that heroes aren't people with special powers. They're ordinary people who don't let go." That's when I knew we'd created something lasting. Not just a rescue, but a ripple effect of connection and purpose that would spread far beyond that morning on the beach. It's been 2 years now since that day. The chain gang still meets monthly, though we've grown far beyond the original 40. When hurricanes threaten, we organize evacuation help for elderly neighbors. When families struggle, we form different kinds of chains. Meal trains, support networks, whatever's needed. Tyler got a full scholarship to pursue his master's in education. He's already student teaching, and his kids adore him. He still messages our group every morning. Another sunrise, another chance to link up. He's dating Rachel's older sister now, a development that surprised no one but him. Patricia expanded her free CPR classes to 3 different community centers. She's trained over 500 people so far, with a waiting list that never shrinks. "Every person who knows CPR is another link in the chain," she says. The Turner Foundation funds all her supplies. I started swimming in the ocean again, something I hadn't done since David died. But I don't swim alone. There's always someone from the chain gang at the beach in the early mornings. We look out for each other, and for anyone else who might need us. I also started writing again. David had always encouraged me to write, but after he died, words felt pointless. Now I document our stories, our connections, the ways we continue to save each other in small, daily ways. Desiree says I should publish them, but for now they're just for us. Last month we responded to another water emergency. This time we knew exactly what to do. The chain formed faster, stronger, with practiced precision. We pulled out a grandfather who'd gone after his grandson's boogie board. Both were fine, and as we brought them to shore, I heard young Chloe teaching the crowd about riptide safety, her voice confident and clear. The grandfather's daughter couldn't stop crying as she thanked us. Through her tears, she asked, "How did you all know what to do?" Old Bill answered her, his voice carrying that mix of pride and humility that defined him. "We're the chain gang, ma'am. This is what we do. What we learned is that none of us is as strong as all of us." She joined our next meeting. So did 12 other people who'd witnessed the rescue. The chain keeps growing. The local news loves to revisit our story every summer, using it as a reminder about beach safety. They always focus on the rescue, the drama of those desperate minutes in the water. But they miss the real story. The real story is Eddie Ramirez, who now knows every neighbor on his street and organizes block parties. It's Desiree, whose kindergarten class partners with Bill's Veterans Group for an adopted grandparent program. It's the Morrisons, who found home in an unexpected place and now volunteer for every beach cleanup. It's Patricia, who met her husband at one of our gatherings, a widower who'd lost his wife the same year I lost David. They understood each other's grief and slowly helped each other heal. Their wedding was on the beach at sunset, with the entire chain gang forming a circle around them as they exchanged vows. It's me, Meredith Harper, who learned that grief doesn't have to mean isolation. For 3 years, I thought my life was a story that had ended too soon. That morning, I realized it was just the start of a new chapter. Strength isn't always about standing alone. Sometimes it's about knowing when to reach out and grasp another hand. I'm seeing someone now, a writer I met at the library when I was researching water safety statistics. He makes me laugh, and he understands why I need to check the beach flags every morning. Every time I run past the spot where we formed our chain, I pause. The beach looks the same as any other stretch of sand and surf. There's no monument, no marker. The city council voted against a memorial plaque, saying it might attract dangerous copycats. But I know what happened there. We all do. Sometimes I meet tourists who ask about the safest places to swim. I always tell them about riptides, about swimming parallel to shore if caught, about never swimming alone. But I also tell them about the chain, about how on one terrible, beautiful morning, strangers became family in the space between the waves. Is it true? They often ask. Did it really happen like that? And I smile, remembering Tyler's grandmother's wisdom about sunrises and second chances. Every word, I tell them. And the best part? It's still happening. Every day, in small ways and big ones, the chain holds. They usually look puzzled at that, these visitors seeking simple beach safety tips. But sometimes one of them will nod slowly, understanding dawning in their eyes. Those are the ones who might just form their own chains someday, in their own communities, when the moment calls for it. Because that's what I learned that morning. Standing chest-deep in angry water, hands locked with strangers who chose courage over comfort. We're all stronger than we know, and we're strongest when we're together. The ocean taught us that. Robert and his children reminded us why it matters, and every sunrise since has been a chance to prove it again. The red flags still fly on rough days. The riptides still pull at unwary swimmers. But now, when I see those warnings, I don't just see danger. I see the moment when humanity linked hands and refused to let go. I see the chain that saved us all. Not just the Turner family, but every one of us who discovered that morning what we're capable of when we stand together. Last week, Aisha Turner sent me a video. She'd passed her intermediate swimming test, beaming as she held up her certificate. "For you, Miss Meredith," she'd said, "for all the chain people." Malcolm was in the background, practicing rescue carries with a dummy. He looked so serious, so determined. These children who'd almost died in the water were now becoming its students, its future guardians. That's the real rescue story. Not just 3 people pulled from the waves, but 40-something souls pulled from isolation, linked forever by salt water and shared purpose. The chain that formed to save lives that day, it never really let go. And every morning when I lace up my running shoes and head for the beach, I know I'm not really running alone. The footprints in the sand beside mine might be hours old or minutes fresh, but they belong to people I'm connected to now. People who will drop everything if they hear a cry for help. People who know that sometimes the most profound connections happen in crisis, and that what matters isn't how long you've known someone, but how tightly you'll hold on when the current tries to pull you apart. The ocean is still powerful, still dangerous, still beautiful. But we've learned its lessons. Together, we're stronger than any riptide. Together, we can reach anyone. Together, we hold. The chain endures.